Okay, so magandang araw sa inyong mga mag-aaral ng senior high school dito sa Infanta National High School. Ngayon naman, panibagong topic at pagpapatuloy lang to ng mga nakalipas na talakayan dito sa subject na Trends, Networks, and Critical Thinking in the 21st Century Culture. So we will be talking about, or I will be discussing to you in very brief or quickly about parts of a whole and mostly focusing on emerging pattern. So through this lesson, you as a student will understand the emergence of trends and patterns. After the lesson, the learners, which happens to be you, will be able to derive an idea from instances. Further, you are expected to identify parts of a whole, identify and explain an emerging pattern, and identify causes and consequences. So I hope that the introductory part about this lesson is clear to you. Yung sinasabi nga dyan sa panimulang bahagi na yan. So we have part of the whole. In order to understand things better, there is a need to dig deeper, trying to identify the parts of the whole. So kailangan niyo pang magsaliksik o humukay pa ng mas malalim. A trend is characterized by many as an elaborate thing that makes the whole idea of the trend working and producing an emerging pattern. Just as the totality of the person is being examined, there is also a need to look at the small segments of every event or situation that keeps it progressing to develop trends. Early thinkers like Plato and Aristotle made a considerable discussion about parts of the whole. Their ideas were later re-examined and intensified by later thinkers. For Karl Marx, the overall strategy of scientific knowledge as it develops in any given period is determined to a significant extent by the particular treatment of the categories of the part and the whole and the specific interpretation of the related question of wholeness. Understanding the parts of the whole is very important as it gives a clear view of the basic elements that make up a whole. A wrong connotation of its part may mislead a decision maker or a student or a teacher or any person and could encourage him or her to question and not adopt the emerging trends. For example, if one looks at the approaches used by different countries in addressing the pandemic, one may find a strategy that works in a country while failing in another. In this case, there is a need to look at the totality of the strategy surrounding the implementation. That includes considerations like political, economic, social factors, culture, etc. because they are parts that make up the whole system. So, konting scenario-based explanation or elaboration na lang ng part of the whole. Mahalaga, bago magkaroon ng isang kabuuan, mahalaga yung mga bahaging bumubuo sa kanya. So yung pagiging ikaw mo, ikaw, o ako ko, pagiging ikaw mo, bawat individual natin, pagiging INHS natin, pagiging sections na kinabibilangan mo, ay binubuo ng mga iba't ibang mag-aaral. May babae, may lalaki, at may LGBTQ pa. Diyan sa isang section pa lang, ay what if buong mundo or buong bansa or buong bayan or buong INHS. So isang komunidad o sa bumubuo sa kanya, mahalagang tingnan yung mga bawat maliliit na peraso o bahagi. So dito yun natin na pag-uusapan, mahalagang matukoy at malaman ito dahil nga siya ang kasama sa pagbuo para ma-identify, matukoy, talking about emerging patterns. So bakit nagkaroon ng pattern? Kasi nga natalakay yung elements and characteristics. Bakit may emerging trends? Kasi nga according sa guidelines, pwede siya at pasok kasama sa pagiging emerging patterns and trends. What's next? Emerging patterns refer to items in which frequency are changing over time. They are important indicators that set the progressive movement of data to understand the distinctive direction to where the trend is heading. For research and businesses, it is an important basis that manifests the practicability of the new sets of action. For example, data of spread of COVID-19 shows that infection is increasing in the workplace rather than in the community. The Department of Health or DOH, using the emerging pattern of spread of infection, can adopt a new strategy for containing the virus and preventing further transmission. Most patterns are presented in graphs or charts to make it easier for people to understand the pattern. Data patterns of trends can be classified as follows. So we have linear, exponential, and damped. So linear, as defined, it follows a straight line in graphical presentation, which could indicate an upward or downward direction. And I have prepared something here talking about linear. Hindi nga lang siya downward, kundi upward. So mapapansin natin, of course, using from the word itself, from the root word, we can say na, okay, may linya, may line. So kung mayroong x and y axis, may vertical and horizontal, mapapansin natin na ang linear emerging patterns ay itong pataas ng pataas na kulay pula. So linear yan, dire-diretsong pataas. May sequence na kung kailan siya nag-hit every 2, 4, 6. So mamaya mayroon ding relation itong 2, 4, 6 na yan. Exponential naman pattern. So this one is about linear pattern. So we can see na, oo, sa pagtaas niya, kada dalawang pag-iitan, tatlong beses tumaas sa may tigda dalawang pag-iitan, ay nakaabot siya sa hanggang ika-6. 5.5, nasa gitna ay. Anyway, linear, it has something to do with the red line. Emerging patterns using the representation of the red line. Linear line. It follows a straight line. Exponential naman, again, what I am discussing with you is about emerging patterns, and data patterns of trends can be classified as follows. So makaklasify mo, straight, yung red line nga, straight line, going up, pwede naman going down, ay yun yung pwede mong gawing basehan. Data patterns of trends can be classified according to linear. Also, it can be classified according to exponential. It is a trend represented by a line that may rise or fall shortly at a given time unsteadily. Data change over time caused by different factors that may affect progression. So mahalaga ding malaman at makita yung representation ng exponential kasi mayroong up and down trend using exponential classification. And one great example of this, exponential, let's just use this, exponential growth. Mapapansin yung 36912, 3612, or 24 by 2s multiplied by 2s. Exponent. Pwede rin namang ito, exponential nga ay exponential pattern. So it happens to be the difference or anong nasa pagitan naman, magitan between 4 and 8, 8 to 16 is by 4 by 8, and all of them is by 2s. Multiplied by 2s. And you will come up with 60. Exponent may up and down. Palaki ng palaki. Pwede rin namang may downtrend. Balikan natin yung definition ni exponential. It is a trend represented by a line that may rise or fall shortly at a given time unsteadily. Sabi pa rin kay Google, ito kasi sabi ni Google, causality root word, sinearch ko to simplify its explanation. This noun comes from the adjective causal, acting as a cause, from a Latin. Oops, not this one, sorry. I'm talking about exponential. So exponent. It has something to do with exponent. Ito pala. Hindi ko siya naipakita. An exponent refers to number of times numbers multiplied by itself. Kunin ko lang saglit. Madalian lang to. This will be quick and I will show it to you right about now. Ito, pakita ko yung exponent na sinasabi ko. Not this one. Exponential. Exponent. There. Malis ka dyan, sir. There. An exponent refers to the number of times numbers multiplied. So makikita nga dun sa kaninang larawan. Again, number of times the numbers multiplied by itself. So see, there. we can identify that, okay, may exponential nga or exponent nga, exponential pattern multiplied by 2 para makarating kay 64. Ano't ano man yan, nagsimula sa maliit, papalaki. So, may up or down trend pa rin, kagaya sa nasa module. About classification using dump, this shows that, letter C, this shows that values rise and fall initially and then stop the rise and fall for some time, then rise or fall again. That is a classification using dump. Identifying emerging patterns. So, anong meron kay dump? Dump is something like this. So, may rise and fall as pointed out from the description or definition. So, from the top, it will fall down, then it will somehow try to recover. From the bottom, going up, then nag-fluctuate saglit, try to go down a little bit, then try to maintain its course. So, dumped. Ito yung elaboration ng dump representation ng pagka-classify ng emerging patterns. So, yeah, that's it about emerging patterns. Again, mahalaga yung sana maunawaan ka agad yung kanina part of the whole, na every detail, every bit, every information ay mahalaga to identify the whole. Causality, it is generally accepted principle that there is the cause for everything that happens. Ito yung kanina. Sorry, na-pop up ko dito. Causality, cause. Latin root word causa or cause. Causality, dahilan. It is generally accepted principle that there is the cause for everything that happens. Of course, that is the principle that every cause produces a consequence. It influences an event, process, or state which is the cause that contributes to the production of another event, process, or state which is an effect or consequence. The cause is partly responsible for the consequences, and the consequences are partly dependent on the causes. Wow. Ang twister ba yan, sir? Paki-highlight. The cause is partly responsible for the consequences, and the consequences are partly dependent on the causes. So itong resulta, effect, is largely depending on what transpire, what happened, what ignite. Ano yung nagsindi. So, depende sa pagsisindi, paglalagablab, ang epekto ng siga. Talking about this, I'm using that as a representation. So, cause is partly responsible for the consequences. So, may cause kasi, and later on, it will have a certain impact, effect, or outcome. So, yes, that's all about causality. What causes the emergence of trends that should be taken and examined as a whole, considering its smallest element or parts? Diyan na, ating hihimay-himayin na dapat sana. Again, what causes the emergence of trends? Kasi may need, kasi mayroong masses of people, may impact, may consistency, and may idea kasi. Going back to our first discussion, that causes may be intensified, paki-delete, paki-bura, that causes may be intensified by intervening factors to produce a desirable progress that characterizes a progressing or failing trends. The resulting changes is the effect of the consequences. So, mahalagang ma-highlight din to. The resulting changes is the effect of the consequences. So, along the way, may pagbabago. The emerging trend for an online learning is beginning to develop caused by the pandemic brought by the COVID-19. Educators, students, and school administrators will design strategies to make learning more effective. The trend may suddenly be stopped when the government adopts the face-to-face learning modality when the vaccine for COVID-19 becomes available. Ito, magandang pag-usapan din tong vaccine, COVID-19, yung trends niya. Knowing na may COVID-19 pa rin, yet parang nagkakaroon ng downtrend. I'm using the word downtrend to avail and get vaccinated. To avail the vaccine and get vaccinated. Bakit kaya nagkakaroon ng downtrend? Anyway, that's it for now. I only highlighted the causality, the classification of identifying patterns of trends, emerging patterns, and parts of the whole. The whole. that makes everything, but yet it is composed of different parts, different elements, different segments, different details, different bits of information that will make up a whole. So any question or clarification later on, as much as possible, I try to minimize and limit the time of my explanation and elaboration of our topic. So be ready, as I posted already on our Facebook group, be ready with any graded recitation through Facebook group comment that I will be posting there. So be mindful of your section and the deadline, please. Thank you and bye.